Is that the breakthrough when you realize that you may be lost or you don't want to wear that mask anymore? Is that the breakthrough?
I'll tell you for me what that breakthrough was, and I would say for a lot of my clients as well. It's kind of a moment. I don't know if it's a single moment. It's not always eureka, here I am, breaking through to the big stage. It's not quite like that. It's not necessarily a sexy process. I would say a big part of it is, excuse my language, it's getting sick of your own shit. It's saying, I I I can't be this person anymore that always reacts the same way to the same stimuli, right? I mean, I have a lot more to offer. I want to be.
You are currently listening to my boy Yuri Kruman. He is a corporate HR strategy organization design consultant, and he's an expert on the employee experience. He is a board member, startup advisor, and official member of the Forbes Coaches Council. He is a well-known contributor to Forbes, Entrepreneur, Business.com, and many other platforms. He is the real deal when it comes to the employee experience. And I have to tell you, like this entire chat, this entire interview, this connection that we have during this episode is pretty deep. I enjoyed every minute of this episode. I hope you guys do too. So let's get this thing started. Let's get after it. This is Your Superior Self, episode 76. All the answers are within your story with entrepreneur Yuri Kruman. What is up, guys? Welcome back, Superior Nation. Good to talk to you. Welcome, welcome, welcome. If this is your first time listening to the podcast, please leave a rating and a review and hit subscribe and become a member of Superior Nation. Love this show. Hope you guys do too. So I want to talk about motivation right now. I have been receiving emails about coming on other podcasts and talking about my leadership course that I've been kind of working on a little bit here and there, but it's been getting some attention lately, especially because I am a millennial, and people want to know how you fire up some millennial leaders, and that's what I do. So that's what I try to do anyway. So if you're listening to this and you need some motivation, definitely from a leadership standpoint, I'm going to talk about that right now. So I have 5 pillars in my leadership course, and one of them being motivation, and I break down motivation into 3 sub-pillars. And the 3 sub-pillars are information flow, mentorship, and knowledge. And I want to focus on knowledge because knowledge will get you to freedom. And what I mean by freedom is this: knowledge will help you escape the stresses and the frustrations that you're currently feeling in your situation or your problem. Whether you're trying to get a promotion or make more money or improve your shitty relationships or even lose weight, knowledge is the cure-all. And if you're unhappy on where you're at right now currently in your life, it's because you hit a wall. Your momentum has stopped. And you need to understand why that is. You need to educate yourself more. You need to go out and learn more information about your situation. And when you do this, it will help you climb that wall. It will help you break it down. And I'll give you some examples. Let's say you want a promotion at work, or you want to go higher in your company. What is holding you back? Is it a lack of a degree? Is it a lack of certifications? If that's the problem, go out and get those. What if you're unhappy in your career and you're not necessarily finding the inspiration that you thought you would have? Then you need to start exploring other options, other careers, different pathways. This is all through knowledge. This is going out and doing the research and finding out what it is that sparks your interests. Now let's talk about money. Let's say you're in a salary position and you don't have the ability to make more. How do you make more money? Well, that is by looking for opportunities elsewhere. And how do you do that? You gotta learn how to invest your money wisely. And there are some online courses on YouTube on how to start, but my advice would be to get like a basic investing book, like an investing for dummies, and learn about the basic definitions and the basic principles of investing, and then learn about other sources of revenue, other ways of creating revenue for yourself monthly, whether that be picking up a side side gig or whatever. Like, research all the job opportunities that you have for yourself. These are ways that knowledge is going to help free you in those situations where you might need some more money a month because of bills. Or that's a perfect example. Learn how to cut your bills in half. You can listen to Dave Ramsey. You can listen to a lot of different podcasts about how to supplement your income or how to cut your debt in half. And that is one way to do that is by snowballing. It is where you start paying all your bills and you start by the smallest, and once you pay that small bill off, then you roll what you were paying in that small bill into another larger bill, and you do that continuously until you get to the largest bill that you have, and then it snowballs into you paying all your bills off, which is a great way. And I think it's how Dave Ramsey teaches, but that's just one way of knowledge, right? And then to how to improve your relationships, there are multiple books on how to communicate better, how to read others better, how to work on oneself to make yourself better for other people. Most of the time it's us who are roadblocks for our relationships. It's not always the other person. And a lot of people write our relationships off when they're not working out correctly because that's the easy thing to do. The hard part would be to look inside of oneself and try to really work on our weaknesses, and nobody wants to do that. But if you're able to go out and research a lot of the behavioral sciences out there, like, that's going to help you improve your relationships. And the last one I talked about was lose weight. How do you lose weight? Well, you got to gain knowledge about diet processes. You got to learn about, exercising. It's not all about what you eat either. It's about exercising and improving your mind, body, and spirit. And how do you do that? You got to research. For example, I have just started going for runs, and they help me think and they help me clear my mind. It's like my mind is the motor, and how do you keep that motor sharp? How do you do that? You got to do the oil changes. The oil changes are working out and the exercise and all the things that are physically going to keep your mind sharp. That cleans all that muck and all that grime out of that engine. Diet is another thing that is going to improve your well-being, the way that you feel. And a lot of people are doing this keto, and I really like the keto diet. I mean, it's hard to get into ketosis for me just because of the way that my diet is set up right now. I mean, it's hard for me to measure because I don't have anything to measure my blood cells or whatever it is to measure your ketosis state. But I like the whole idea of intermittent fasting because it burns all that yuck, all that junk that's in your stomach. It burns it. Like it's like your gas tank in your car. My dad always used to say, don't ever run your car when the E light is on, right? Like the empty light or the gas light is on, because you're getting all that muck and all that grime from what's in the fuel, the leftover stuff, and you don't want to run your engine on that. And that's the same thing in the body, right? When you go into intermittent fasting, you're burning all that chemical leftover stuff, like the sugars and all the bad stuff that really hurts our bodies, and it kind of resets the system. I'm not an expert on that, but I'm learning more about the human body and what it takes to be healthy. And that is going to allow me to work on my longevity, my brain power, my memory, my spiritual life. Like, all that ties into just making myself better. And it's easy to say, but it's hard to do. And some people out there don't know where to start. I'm telling you right now, the one place to start is just pick some aspect of yourself that you want to work on, whether that be your health, and pick up a book. It's like a video game, and I've said this before, where you can't expect to go on level 26 if you're on level 1. You can't skip levels. You have to start out at 1 and go to 2 and then 3. Level 1 is going and learning the basics about the subject that you want to get better at and climb that wall. Start climbing the wall, looking for hold points and areas of weakness in that wall that you can break it down. And I'm going on a rant here, but I think that knowledge is so important, because knowledge frees us from our small selves that stress out about the little things in life that we can't control. We can't control a lot of things in our lives, but we can gain knowledge that's going to help us prepare ourselves for those situations and for those moments where we become weak, and it strengthens us, and it makes us harder. And we start looking at little things like they're jokes. We start looking at situations in our lives like, that is so small and so insignificant in my life, I don't even care. And that's where I'm at. I'm trying to get there. I am at the point now where I look at things that would have stressed me out 10 years ago and I laugh. And that's where I want you to get, because it is such a freeing and such a great feeling to know that I have the power to change my life. I am the key to success. I am the key to my happiness. And I hope that you guys get a lot out of this rant, because it's continuously going and I can't stop. But I'm excited about my conversation with Yuri today, because he is a coach and he understands everything that I'm talking about, and he will inspire you to really take that mask off, to take the mask off that you've been wearing for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, because you thought that you had to live your life a certain way because of society and its rules. I'm telling you right now, take it off and run like hell. Run like hell towards your goals. Whatever it is that you are, whoever you are, be that person. I hope you guys enjoyed that rant. And if you found value in that, please head over to my website and check out some of my new blog posts that I have up over there. It's yoursuperiorself.com. You can check me out over there and also sign up for my email list, and I will start sending you all the episodes, blog posts, and news about the podcast directly to your inbox. You can stay up to date with all the news associated with the podcast. And if that's too much for you, you can actually text the word superior to 444-999, and you'll automatically be updated to my email list. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to download this episode and hang out with me today. So without further ado, here is my conversation with Yuri Kruman. What's going on, Superior Nation? Today I am joined with Yuri Kruman. How are you doing, Yuri?
Doing well, Trey. Thanks a lot for having me on.
I want to say thank you for joining, and give my audience a little get them up to speed. What do you got going on today?
Quite a lot, thankfully. Okay, so just to give you some background, I do a mix of consulting around HR strategy for fast growth startups. So essentially, let's say you have a nice kind of family business, and one day you decide, hey, I want to franchise. So how do you scale that kind of culture that you built, like a family culture? So that's something that I help companies to figure out. What is their special sauce, so to speak, and how to scale that, and how to make sure that all the systems are in place for them to do that, meaning how do they hire the right people? How do they know what fit is there with their culture for each person? How do you create an employee handbook? How do you do onboarding well? How do you make sure to create an incredible employee experience? Because that's really what this is about. In the end, yeah.
So you got the coaching going on. You got that business up and running. You got a new book coming out, right?
Yeah, it just came out in March, actually. It's called What Millennials Really Want from Work and Life.
So how did you do the research on that book? Like, are you considered a millennial?
Yeah, I would say, toward the older side. Just turned 36. But yeah, I would say that certainly the way I see the world in some ways is very millennial, and in other ways it's just not even close.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm on that tipping point. I'm 36. Well, I'll be 36 Friday. So,
very cool. So there you go.
I think that yeah, we are labeled as millennials, but I think we're a little bit we're on that teetering position, right? Like, I think our views aren't true millennial.
Yeah, I would say that, first of all, among millennials, I mean, you never want to paint any generation in one color, but especially for millennials, maybe the most studied generation of all time. And there's a big split between the older millennials, meaning those of us who went through the recession already while working, versus those who were in school, high school or college. So it is a very big difference in practice, because those of us that are older tend to have had accumulated more debt from college, not to from school and from credit cards and other things. So we kind of bore the brunt of really the storm. And then the younger guys, they're a little bit less so. They're more optimistic.
Yeah, I mean, you heard a lot of, you hear more about the baby boomers, and then it was all of a sudden it's millennials. You don't hear anything really. I don't hear anything really about the Gen X and or Gen Y or whatever else there is. What do we? I mean, how can you educate us more on millennials? Like, can you give us more details about your book and what it's about?
Sure. So number one, just to give you some perspective on where I'm coming from here. So it's not just sort of, I woke up one day and, hey, what the hell? Let me look at millennials, right? Why not? But the reason I really started thinking about this is because I, in some ways, went through all the repeated storms, right? So aside from, it's not a sob story. Everybody has their issues, but just to give you some background where I'm coming from. So I immigrated from Russia when I was 9. I grew up in Kentucky and, went to college in Philadelphia. The path was pretty much, I'm going to do some kind of mix of biomedicine, maybe an MD, PhD. And while I'm there, while I'm in college, it's sort of like the world opens up to you and you realize, what? That's nice, but I don't think that's me, right? Plus, my grades for pre-med were terrible. Humanities were excellent, but pre-med was just terrible. So I realized.
Well, tell me.
Yeah.
Well, I don't mean to cut you off, but you really said something that was interesting. You went from Russia to Kentucky.
Yeah.
How did that work out?
Well, I mean, it always has to work out because, a kid has to find his way and you have to learn the language and the psychology of the people around you. So, I learned to play basketball and follow the Wildcats and all that good stuff. And
was it tough for you? I mean, Kentucky, I would assume you had some difficulties coming from Russia straight to Kentucky. I mean, was there any type of stereotyping? Was there any type of negative aspects of growing up in Kentucky?
To be perfectly frank, I'm actually very happy I grew up in Kentucky rather than New York, because a lot of kids that come from Russia would grow up in New York or Philadelphia or another big city. I love nature. There's the bluegrass. It's a really beautiful place. People are very nice. They'll never stab you in the front like in New York. So growing up, I kind of that's always been my thing. I try to have good manners and sort of just good old Southern values kind of thing. But as an immigrant, especially from Russia, I had a shtick going with my U.S. history teacher, Mr. Pope. Kind of like it's like, oh, those commies, those pinkos, and we kind of like wink at each other. And we have the same birthday, funny enough. And actually, at the end of high school, this was right after Columbine of all things, I brought him a gift. We went to an antique store and I found, what's it called? A sickle, an actual hand sickle. And I found a mallet. I packaged them up in a shoebox with a red string and I brought it in. And he still has it in his garage all these years later, apparently. So it was a shtick, like, oh, you're Russian, so you must, drink vodka 5 times a day and you must be really, really good at math and at chess. I'm like, okay, well, I guess you got some things right.
That is hilarious.
It's like,
go ahead and,
yeah.
Yeah, so go ahead and I didn't mean to interrupt, but continue on with your story from Kentucky. Where did you end up?
So from Kentucky, I went to college in Philadelphia. I did neuroscience and anthropology there, but I kind of, like I said, the world opened up, and you're free to study whatever you want in college, in America at least. So I did everything from chemistry, I did literature, I did humanities, I did some courses in Russian, and I kind of like realized, hey, I can still write in this language, not bad. So from college, the plan was, okay, my grades, again, really suck in pre-med, so there's no way I'm going to make it to med school. But, I did all this research in neuroscience and, I kind of have the bachelor's. So that's what I went into. I got into grad school at NYU and I came right after college to do the PhD. And in that first year, I quickly realized that this is not a good fit. Right, so I'm doing things that intellectually are interesting, but to really be in it 24/7 is it's too much. You realize that it's not your thing. So I actually built my first startup in there. You're going to love this one. So it was a Jewish social network, and I called it juicyjews.com. So that was my first business. It failed miserably, but it really taught me that I want to do my own business, even if I have a lot to learn. I didn't know anything about product management or coding or design, any of that. But, I paid some guys in India to create the site, and, there was a spike in traffic and it died, and that was it. But after that, I still need a grad degree, being a good immigrant boy. So I went to law school, and that opened up a whole can of worms, meaning the debt, $250,000 to be exact. Yep. So while I was in law school, I did God knows how many different internships, and I worked for a lady on Fifth Avenue who was doing legal consulting. She worked for the governor, for the mayor, etc. I worked at the New Yorker magazine for a week doing fact checking for like a Russian article. I mean, I did personal injury, I did insurance defense litigation, some crazy things. A lot of fun, but the debt was painful.
What how's your Russian history?
Well, depends on what we're talking about exactly.
All right, so I just started reading, and I'm gonna probably butcher his name, but P.D. Ouspensky, is that how you say it?
Ouspensky, yeah.
Ouspensky,
Mm-hmm.
and then he was a student of G.I.
Gurdjieff.
Gurdjieff.
Yep.
Yeah, have you read up on them at all?
But it's not my natural inclination, but I've certainly heard their names.
Yeah, I've been reading actually quite a bit from PD,
Mm-hmm.
and I have to say I'm fascinated with their theory and philosophies on life, the types of consciousness that we all have, right? So that
Mm-hmm.
there's four consciousnesses. You have when you're sleeping, when you're awake, and there's a third and fourth that we very rarely get to. What are your thoughts on that? Like, I mean, I don't mean to flip the script, but it's just I'm sitting here, just got done reading The Fourth Way by PD,
Mm-hmm.
and now I'm speaking to a Russian immigrant. And I'm putting the two together right now, and I'm kind of like, oh, you know what? Let's see what he has to say about that.
Well, this is actually very interesting. This ties into my next book that I'm working on. Actually, it's a different way of looking at consciousness, I would say. So my perspective may be a little bit different from what you're reading there, but I came upon an idea, and where it came from, I'm not sure, but essentially, my company is called Master the Talk Consulting. The reason for that is that what I found is that when you're switching careers, you're trying to build a business, it's all about the conversation that you have in your own head, number one. Number two is with other people. That's the one everybody wants to know. Hey, teach me copywriting. Teach me, how to reach out to potential clients. That's the sexy stuff, right? But there are two other conversations which are just as important. And they do form a certain consciousness that lets you not just refine yourself, but potentially monetize what you do and be productive and constructive in life to build something special. So aside from your conversation with yourself, meaning in your mind, who am I, where am I going, what am I meant to do, how do I get there? There is also a conversation with your body, meaning you have to really, it's not just, I'm going on a diet or, I'm gonna be healthy, whatever that means, right? You really have to listen to your body, understand, okay, I have certain genetic predispositions, I have certain epigenetic predispositions, and I really have to be very clear about how things function. Right, so my body may be completely different from yours in some ways, but I have to take good care of it. In order to take good care of it, I can't just run after every new health fad. I can't just listen to my physician because he may not be aware of all these other things. So the conversation that each of us has with our body is very, very important. I'll give you an example. I have a client. He's a devout Muslim, and he works in finance, and he texts me today. He's very anxious, very, very anxious. He's like, I feel like I have imposter syndrome, and he's like going on and on and on. And I text him back. I'm like, listen, I think part of this anxiety is coming from you not eating for most of the day because it's Ramadan. And he's like, yeah, I think you're right, because I can tell just the intensity of things. He's a pretty calm guy usually, but he's like distressed. So that alone, for me, I know this from my experience. When I don't have my yogurt in the morning, I get anxious, and it's not a trivial effect. It's a pretty clear correlation. So the gut brain connection is very strong. just for starters. And then the fourth conversation, this is one that most people like to maybe avoid or skirt, but it's a conversation we have with, either you call it God or universe or, some other form, but really it's what puts everything else in context. Why are we here? What is all this for? If all I can do here in my short time on earth is to help other people, then how do I do it? Right? And there's a great quote by a rabbi, Menachem Mendel Schneerson, that says, I believe it's something like, if you want to change the world, change yourself first. So that's, I know that we're a little bit far from Uspensky and Gurdjieff, but I think this does tie in a bit to their work.
Oh, I love that. I think that is, I agree 100% with that quote. I just posted a quote today on Instagram from the Gospel of Thomas. I actually wrote it on my big whiteboard because I like to look at this. It really gives me permission to go after the things that I want. It helps me with imposter syndrome. I'll quote it right now. If you do not bring forth what is within you, what you do not bring forth will destroy you.
Yep.
So it gives me permission to go after the things that I want to do, that fire that's inside my belly, with the podcast and with, reaching my audience and trying to help others and inspire others to get motivated and move forward in their lives. And, how do you say it? Gurdjieff?
Gurdjieff, yeah. I mean,
I can't say it with the roll of the tongue so nicely as you, but his main idea in what I'm reading right now is that everyone is a machine, right? Everybody is influenced by outside factors. And I agree with some of it. It's just the whole idea of looking at oneself in a different light, like being conscious to the idea that you are this machine type and you're influenced by outside factors. And I kind of try to look at myself like that when I get caught up in the little things, right? Like when you talk about you get a certain way when you don't have yogurt, right? And you start acting a little differently. It's all mind, body, and gut, but it's all related. And so I, in reading this book recently, have started taking a step back and being conscious to the bigger picture. With that, right? With that idea of the bigger picture, what is your philosophy? Like, why do you think, what do you think your meaning here is? Like, why do you think you were put on this earth, and what is your goal?
Okay, so I'm happy you asked that because that ties into actually my framework for coaching, and that's kind of in some ways the most valuable part of what I do, and that's regardless of whether it's on the business side or coaching for career. So my philosophy, or at least my understanding of why I was put here on earth, and again, this is a result of quite a lot of not just soul searching, but a lot of dead ends and a lot of mistakes, a lot of, just going in the wrong direction. But there is no such thing as really a wrong direction. It's just an involution in the path. So for me, I realized how have I always looked at the world? Okay, there are really two lenses. It's through language and psychology. Those are the things that I've always used to evaluate. Okay, I'm an immigrant. I'm in Kentucky. People are very different here from the way that I grew up. They have completely different interests, different culture, different language. I need to understand what is their language, right? How do they communicate? How do they get their point across? Right. So I was born in a very academic family. Everything is, super complicated, and everybody's trying to win a Nobel Prize. And that's great, but it messes you up because this is a very Russian thing, by the way, that either you make it to Carnegie Hall or you're crap, you're nothing, right? Or you achieve some kind of tremendous renown, or, well, you're a bust, right? And that it brings you up to a very high level of ambition and education and yearning for something. Because in Russia, in Soviet Russia, also being Jews, were actively discriminated against at every level, couldn't go to certain universities, couldn't get, certain degrees, couldn't practice certain professions. So for us to be respectable in Soviet society, we had to really be the best of the best of the best so that they couldn't ignore us, they couldn't put us down. And, getting to America where anything goes, number one, first of all, like, what is this? What is this free for all? right? We have to retrench. We have to go back to our books, to our learning, and in a way, growing up, I was almost like an internal exile because my mom was an academic. She's a neuroscientist. That's why I went into neuroscience, right? Incredibly well read, very polished in many, many different ways. But it also, it eats at you because, I'm not at this level. So that means it took a very long time for me to get out of that trap. And, because I kept saying, okay, well, neuroscience didn't work out. Oh my God, the world is ending. So then, I went to law and law didn't work out. There were no jobs and it just wasn't for me. And then finance and then tech, right? Certain things work out. You learn what works, what doesn't, but it's not my thing and it's not my thing and it's not my thing. Finally, when I left tech, it was a turning point because I had to decide, look, I have to really get this right. So I had a talk with my wife. And, we decided that I'm going to do coaching because I've always had that personality. People come to me, random strangers in the street, and they tell me their life story. It's like something's written on my forehead. Tell me, tell me your life story, So you start thinking back on your life and putting together the patterns, right? Okay, so people clearly they think I'm a good listener. Apparently I am. And I'm able to help people because I recognize patterns in their lives, just as I do in my own. And I'm able to use the different disciplines that I've learned and worked in to really get them to the right place. Cheaper, better, faster, whatever it is, whether building a business or figuring out their career. So really my own path and all of my quote unquote mistakes and involutions and all of this craziness, also while living in New York and, building a family and all this stuff, it made me realize that there are really 4 things that matter the most. That's really what my framework is. So number 1 is life mission, right? When you think 10 years ahead. So, wherever you are now, you might be early in your career, in the middle, later, doesn't matter. You want to build something that's your own. Maybe it's your company, your own startup, I don't know what, okay, your coaching practice, or maybe you want to run the division of somebody else's company. And you're solving a very specific intellectual problem to which you're very strongly connected. So you have to figure out what that is. And there are other steps we'll talk about. So number 1, let's say you decide, hey, I want to cure AIDS in Thailand. Okay, sounds okay. For some people that makes sense. For others, it's crazy. Let's say that's my thing. What do I need to do to build that company that creates a drug that cures AIDS in Thailand? I need to raise a ton of money, hire a great team, develop the drug, get it FDA approved, take it to Thailand, liaise with the health ministry, identify the target population, get them the drug, and bam. 10 years from now, hopefully everything is accomplished, right? So between now and then, in 10 years, what do you need to do in terms of gaining experience, learning skills, accessing networks, raising money? What do you need to do? Put it on a project timeline, right? Break it down. What do I need to do in each year? Okay, and that becomes real because it's bite-sized. It's something that you can accomplish. It's not you trying to lasso the moon, right? It's much more real. And that's what I found. So number 1 is life mission. That also turns into movement. What do I mean by movement? Okay, so that's my mission. I want to, let's say, help 1 million people or 10 million people figure out their career path or to build a side business that's successful. Okay, maybe that's my mission. Well, I want to make it a movement. I want to lead the movement. I have to go and speak. I have to go write books. I have to do all these things. That keeps me accountable. It's not just me. It's not just little old me saying, hey, you should do this, right? It's all those other people that are not getting the benefit of my work, which I'm not able to produce because I'm not taking care of myself, right? So that becomes a whole other kind of leverage for you to accomplish your goals. Okay. Number 2 is values. Look at people that are in your life that you enjoy spending time with. Okay. Maybe it's someone's podcast you listen to, or someone's book you've read. Maybe it's a priest, a rabbi, somebody that you look up to. Maybe it's a family member. How do they make you feel? They make you feel like $1 million. They make you learn something about yourself. So what's common to those people? Are they kind? Are they generous? Are they hilarious? Brilliant? What's going on there? That's your special sauce. You look for people like that to help you level up, to help you move ahead in life. Okay? That's very important, those values. And those others say, thank you, God bless you, not for me. Okay? 3rd is outcomes. That's how you bring your best energy. That's how you bring your best self to whatever kind of work you like. You're maybe a curator. So I come to you and say, hey, help me out. Let me figure out the best investment plan out of 1,000 options. Or let's say you're an evangelist, small e, right? You're persuading everybody to invest in you, to work with you, to build something that doesn't exist. You're a motivator. Maybe you're a niche expert. You love talking about some very particular, works of Kandinsky. Okay, maybe you're a caretaker. You empower others to do their life's best work. Okay, things like that. And the last one is role, that looks at situations. Most people don't look at situations. They just say, hey, I'm in a job. What do I need to do to be successful? Look at your life. Look at things you've been through. Maybe it's immigration. Maybe it's divorce, health problems, financial problems. Everybody has issues, right? So how have you dealt with those issues? Because that becomes a blueprint for you to be able to help others who go through the same thing. And you help them to do it cheaper, better, faster, with less pain, whatever. Okay? And then you look at your negative scripts, what's preventing you from actualizing yourself. Maybe it's shiny object syndrome. Maybe you think you don't have the right degree or experience. Okay? But you have to understand that everyone has a bias to hammer themselves. Okay? And then the last piece is what I call founding stories, just like founding fathers, right? The things that make you who you are, formative experiences. So maybe, again, immigration, divorce, I don't know, you went and studied the wrong thing. It doesn't fit with who you are, okay? And then how do you learn? What is your learning style? How do you process information? How do you make decisions? Whom have you influenced, just as importantly as who has influenced you? Those are the things that make you who you are and that will give you the crumbs to follow the right path.
So I can connect with finding who you are, right? I think a lot of people, well, I shouldn't say a lot, but I think most people that I talk to have that problem where they don't really truly know who they are, right? Like I feel like everybody's at some point in their lives have became this follower, right? Of they wanted to fit in, they wanted to be liked, they wanted to be accepted by the group, so they followed people into especially in high school, and then college, same thing, kind of. What's your advice to those, like those people that were followers for most of their lives are now just becoming working professionals, right? And they don't know who they are.
Yeah, so this happens quite often. That's exactly usually when people come to me because they're in their mid-career. They're sitting in a large bank, usually a VP or director, and they're kind of like, all right, I'm pretty good at this. I'm making a good buck, but I can't stand who I am. I forgot who that person is, and I can't put on the mask every morning. So, that I would say is actually pretty normal. It's not good. It's not healthy, but it is totally normal. And I think the vast majority of people just never really realize that they can do something. And even if they can do something, they can't make that push. And I'm not here to judge them, God forbid. Who am I to judge anybody, right? But I would just say that the breakthrough can come at any moment. It can come a moment before death. It can come when you're in college. It can come any time in between. Some people know from an early age what they want to be. I have a good friend. He was always on that path of being a PhD, and went to Harvard, got his PhD, he's a professor, and that's just it. My mom was like that. She always wanted to do science. For a lot of others of us, we struggle because of societal stereotypes, what our family wants, what our sister brother does, what our spouse wants, and it's very, very tough to say, you know what? I want to be the best version of myself rather than what someone wants me to be or, what society expects me to be. It's very tough. Very few people, I would say, actually make it out. And make it out in the sense that, let's say my mission in life is to help old ladies cross the street. Okay, that's lovely, but how the hell am I going to survive doing that in New York City? It's just not happening, or anywhere for that matter, right? It's just not happening. So you have to find a middle ground where you're in your zone of genius, right? This is something that's pretty familiar to a lot of us, meaning you are able to add massive value to a certain group of ideal clients, whoever those are, without necessarily expending a lot of effort, time, or money. And you're able to take some of that for yourself. Plus, you're damn good at it, and you enjoy it, right? So I think the Japanese people have something called ikigai, which it's kind of like that Venn diagram of 4 different factors, and in the middle is this concept of ikigai. So that's rare. For most of us, we have to compromise. We have to figure out, you know what? Okay, I really love painting, but my paintings aren't worth much on the market now. So I have to go work in finance. You know, why should any of us judge? Everyone has their first priority to feed and clothe their family, right? So we're not here to judge, but I think it benefits every single person. All of us, we're lucky to live in a free society where we can choose which path to take. So because we have that ability, I think that we owe it to ourselves to take the steps necessary to figure ourselves out and to move along the path of doing at least meaningfully part of that work that brings out the best in us. It's not out of happiness, it's out of meaning. When you have meaning in your life, the happiness comes.
I love that. I really like that a lot. You talked about breakthrough, right? When we have that breakthrough, is that the breakthrough when you realize that you may be lost or you don't want to wear that mask anymore? Is that the breakthrough?
I'll tell you for me what that breakthrough was, and I would say for a lot of my clients as well. It's kind of a moment. I don't know if it's a single moment. It's not always eureka, here I am, breaking through to the big stage. It's not quite like that. It's not necessarily a sexy process. I would say a big part of it is, excuse my language, it's getting sick of your own shit. It's saying I can't be this person anymore that always reacts the same way to the same stimuli, right? I mean, I have a lot more to offer. I want to be able to give the world what I have. And the channel through which I'm doing that now, my whatever job in finance or whatever, it doesn't have to be finance. Some people love finance, God bless. But the channel through which my energy flows blocks a lot of it, or it doesn't come out in the right way, so that my contributions to the world are not really seeing the light of day. So let me change that. Let me reroute my energy in a way that brings the best of me out and helps me to become better and helps other people do the same.
Yeah, but I agree. I just think a lot of people don't really know what that is, right? They don't
Sure.
really they know they have this passion.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I wouldn't say passion. They have this feeling inside of them that they wanna do something, but they don't know exactly what it is they want to do. They don't know. I don't think they really know what they're good at.
So here's exactly what I would say. A lot of people reach for something. It's got to be something new. I haven't tried this. No. Right? Everybody's trying to grasp at straws. Let me go get a self-help book. Next thing you know, you have a pile of 20, right? And you're not acting on any of it. The reason is because the answer is always in the rearview mirror. It's looking at your own history, at your own patterns, at what has brought you meaning in life. There's no such thing as I've always done what others have wanted. No, of course, as free people, we do a lot of things that we enjoy, but we may not think that, hey, that's monetizable. I can get paid for that. I mean, I never in my life thought that I could make money as a consultant or coach. But hey, you know what? I found a way by researching how others have done it. But the key is that was always the way that I saw the world. I always listened and I always looked for a way to help somebody. So I've always been a coach and consultant de facto since I was a kid. So there's no such thing as, hey, I need to go and find something new. It's not about the new. All the answers are within your story, within your history, what you've been through, how you've reacted, and how you've gotten through problems. Now go help others do the same. It's not rocket science.
Yeah, I mean, I was reading the book "Man's Search for Meaning" and by Viktor E. Frankl, and he talks about what does he say? He says that we have the basic instincts in life, and finding meaning is not one of them. That's why we choose to flock towards the group, is because we don't really know what we want. And then when a small group of people finally think they figured it out, then we go to that because we don't know how to find our own meaning. Right. So our own meaning, everybody wants to say, what's the meaning of life? What's the meaning of life? You should really be asking yourself the question, what is your meaning to life? How are you going to, what are you going to bring to life that is going to create value? Maybe not necessarily to monetize, but just to fulfill you. Right.
Sure. I mean, I don't mean to speak for everyone, but for me, the meaning of life in the only real practical sense is that we are here to help improve the human condition. And the talents and the capabilities that we're given, I mean, regardless of circumstances, should help us find a way to do just that, to improve the human condition through the channel through which our energy flows the best, and in whatever I would say era we find ourselves in, with whatever cultural constraints. But those are secondary questions, right? Again, we're not looking for something that's completely different. Shakespeare and Cervantes and all the great authors, they've written about all the best subjects in the most incredible of ways. But every new generation needs to relearn the lessons. That's inevitable, because human memory is very selective. It's very short. And, there's no such thing as all of us have accumulated historical memory. It's not possible. So even if I go and write, let's say, fiction, and I've actually written 2 novels, right? For me to say, hey, it's something completely and utterly breathtakingly new and never been done, that's beside the point. That's not actually the reason to write something or to put something on paper. It can be totally banal, but for a new group of people that have perhaps not read those books, or maybe not gleaned the lessons because it's not their own language and psychology, they need to relearn those same lessons about love and death and all the great themes, right? I read about Vonnegut. Kurt Vonnegut did a thesis, and the thesis was about storylines. And actually, if you look at all the best, the most popular, the most acclaimed books of all time, all of them essentially follow one of about 5 different storylines. So you might have a rags to riches, you might have a Cinderella kind of story. They're all pretty typical, and the reason for their power is because of those storylines. People intuitively flock toward those kinds of stories. Somehow they resonate with them in the greatest sense. So again, if I go and write a great book, the odds are that I followed one of those kinds of storylines. But I did something in a language and accounting for the psychology of my generation, the people that read the book. So I don't need to go recreate everything from scratch. I just need to adapt it to a new audience.
I think that's an important factor, following the storyline, because like now in modern day, we follow stories on Facebook and social media, right? Like we find people that we associate with and storylines that we like, and the reality stars, the influencers, and we follow their social media feeds and we try to mimic them, and that's why I have a problem with social media and trying to find our meanings in lives, because you again are following someone, right? You're not creating your own meaning. You're mimicking someone else. That's just my opinion. I feel like if you want to find your meaning and you want to get value in your own life, I think you need to kind of detach a little bit and take a step back and really get to know yourself first, right?
Yeah, I mean, actually, I was talking about this with my mom earlier today, that it doesn't matter how wise you think you are because you read all the great, books of philosophy or history or fiction or anything else. Life is such that you have to go make your own mistakes. There's just no way for you to absorb all the wisdom of the world while sitting on your couch. It doesn't work. The only way you can really go and become wise is by making mistakes, by going down the wrong alleys, by having somebody beat the crap out of you with maybe their logic or otherwise. And those are the kinds of lessons that are the most valuable. Those are the things that stick with you. That's life experience. So again, it doesn't really matter how much you read and how much you think you understand. You'll never really internalize that wisdom without going out into the world and applying it and doing your best to add value to other people.
Do you have any kids, Yuri?
Two girls, 5 and 3.
Beautiful. What do you want to teach them? Like, what's the most important thing that you want to teach them when they grow up?
That's a great question. There's many things I want to teach them. I wish we have a saying in Russian, you can't vaccinate your own brain into someone else. So
that's a saying in Russia?
It is.
Really?
Yeah. Russian is full of such, I would say, rather strange sayings, but,
what's another one?
You had to be there. the slower you go, the farther you'll get. But that's kind of a truism in a lot of
Oh,
languages.
absolutely. All right.
Yeah.
So going back to your daughters, one thing. All right. You
Yeah.
know what? Yeah. Let's say one thing that obviously it's a hard question to answer because there's a lot of things that you want to teach them and instill in them. But the one thing that you would really want to pass on to them that is kind of going to help them go through life, and you're going to get bumps and bruises. It's just the nature of life. But the one thing that they can keep with them for the rest of their lives, what would you want to teach them?
Okay, so there's a teaching from Hasidic Judaism. So for those that may not be familiar with what Hasidic Judaism is, a Hasid is someone who's very pious. So it doesn't mean that it's necessarily the most learned person, that he sits all day and studies Torah and Talmud and Gemara, but it's someone that is able to create joy at a moment's notice. What do I mean by that? It could be that, again, God forbid, your mortgage is about, basically they're about to put your house on the block, and I don't know, like you're really suffering in life. And there are moments, all of us have those moments where you don't know what the hell to do because everything seems to be collapsing around you. And a chassid is someone who's able to, let's say, start dancing or singing, and someone just who realizes the essence of this is that joy breaks all boundaries. That's maybe in some ways the most important teaching, because it's not something that's from books. History comes and goes, people remember or forget, but the one thing that really always breaks boundaries, whether it's between people, cultures, languages, is joy. If you are able to, let's say you go to a wedding, right? Everybody can be happy at a wedding. Even if they're envious or jealous, everybody can find a moment of happiness at a wedding because they're happy for other people. That's it. And that's what this means. Joy breaks all boundaries. That's the one thing above all I would want to get across to them.
That's beautiful, man. Thank you for sharing that. What's been your biggest lesson as a father?
Oh, God knows. There are many, many lessons. Let's put it this way. I wasn't unfortunately blessed with a lot of time with my own father, and my parents divorced, and it was a bit messy. So my model for fatherhood really comes from my grandfather, my mother's father, and he's someone that served in the Red Army during World War II. He had some miraculous escapes. He lived through some insane times of anti-Semitism and Stalin and purges and God knows what, plague. I mean, he went to treat plague in Kazakhstan back in the early 40s. So someone like that is, I can only marvel. I can only marvel at someone who lived through such times and still managed to be an incredible person and very learned and kind and generous and so on and so forth. So for me, that's my reservoir. But again, every generation we have to relearn things that may seem obvious or nice in theory. So for me, the lessons of childhood, of raising kids and seeing them in childhood, is that just the same as we don't choose our parents, and that's a lottery. It's the same thing with kids. We're lucky in the sense that, okay, maybe intelligence is 80% genetic or looks to a large degree, but the character and the combination of things that goes into a kid laughing, or why they pick certain books, why they talk about certain subjects, and it just, you have moments like that when it hits you like, oh my God, there's the odds of this kid saying something like that in exactly the way that I said it as a kid are damn near impossible. Moments like that when it really hits you like, okay, the marvel of, humanity, I guess, right? The way that, I guess, in my belief system, the way that God transmits certain things, whether it's through the way our soul is, or any number of different factors, it's absolutely incredible and fascinating. Just those little moments, and those are the moments really that you have to live for. That's when you have to experience that joy, because you don't know when it's going to come. A lot of it is, yelling, go wipe your behind, or, go eat your veggies, or, like plug yourself into the car seat. A lot of being a father or a parent is just routine, and it's stuff that you probably never thought you would do because that's so annoying, that's so pathetic. But it's like you do those things because you're biologically wired. You change as a person when you have kids. You become more conservative. I mean, these things are pretty banal. But those moments that kind of show you that, yeah, you did the right thing, and this is a true miracle that you have a kid who's not only, thank God, born healthy and whatever, but those little things that you're just like, I can't believe that this of all things got passed down. So for me, that those are moments of joy I really treasure.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I had a moment today. I was leaving for work, and I get over the weekend. We had stayed close to the house. We didn't really go out, but my daughter Ava, she sometimes gets in these moods where she doesn't get out of the house. It was raining, so she gets in. She becomes a little mischievous, and so she throws some temper tantrums and stuff. So I was leaving for work today, and I come into my office to grab something, and I look at my whiteboard, and she writes, "Dear Dad, I know I have been bad, but I love you a lot." And like I'm like, ah, and everything is like, everything's spelled wrong, but I can make it out. That's a moment, right? That is a moment. I'm getting ready to head off to work, and I'm facing the day, and it's a positive note, right? It gets me in that mindset of, what, it doesn't even matter what's going to happen today. Like that, I get to come home to these kids. I get to come home to this house. I get to come home to my wife, and I'm blessed, right?
That's it. Gratitude is the number one most important thing, because look, shit happens sometimes in large quantities. You don't always know what to do with it, how to deal with it. You don't always have the answers, but you have that little smile, you have that little munchkin that looks up to you, and that's it. I mean, in some ways, meaning of life, right? We're talking about meaning of life. Maybe it's banal. Maybe a lot of people think, ugh, that's it. Those little moments. What can you ask for?
When was your last moment, Yuri? Talk to me about it.
We just had one in the car. So our little one, who's 2, we were on FaceTime with my mom, and she the little one, she's, there are spurts, not just of growth, but also development. So for the little one, she always I speak to her in Russian, she answers in English, and then I say it again in Russian, she repeats in Russian, and then we kind of go through this routine. So today, she was on FaceTime, and my mom is talking to Livia, the little one, and she started saying phrases in Russian, and I'm like, it's a different approach than with the older one. The older one, you're always trying hard to prove something, and you're like, no, come on, da, 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 da. And the little one, I'm just like, I'm a little bit more relaxed, so I just let it come, and I start seeing the results, and I'm like, yeah, maybe that's what it is. I just need to take a step back and not be such a Russian father. So it's a fun moment.
That's awesome, man. I could talk to you all night, brother. How do people connect with you?
Feel free to visit either one of my websites. So it's masterthetalk.com. That's my consulting site. And yurikruman.com. That's more around speaking and more thought leadership. But feel free to email me directly. I'm more than happy to get back to people that have questions. It's Yuri, YURI, at masterthetalk.com.
So to kind of wrap things up, tell me, Yuri, what do you want your legacy to be?
In the same vein that we were talking about mission and movement, I would say that beyond anything else, beyond whatever, let's say, monetary value I'm able to generate, beyond, cost savings, whatever resume metrics I'm able to generate, and, that's always important as well. For me, the most important thing is how many people have I helped to become self-sufficient in something? How many people have I taught to fish so that I don't have to fillet anything for them, and nobody else does either? For me, that's in some ways the most important legacy. That is not going to be necessarily defined by how many, startups I advise or how many, executives I coach. It's going to be a cumulative effect of my conversations, the books that I am able to write, and just, the speaking engagements that I do, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. If someone approaches me in the street, if I'm able to add value to them, I'm happy. That's the best I can do. So my legacy hopefully will be that I did my best with whatever I was given within whatever limitations, I have to live to help the largest number of people to learn to fish on their own.
How many people do you have coming up to you in New York? I don't think too many people come up to each other in New York and greet each other, right?
Let's put it this way. It's definitely gone down a great deal since I started living here. It's the kind of thing where you learn to scowl and you learn to sharpen your elbows and just move on quickly. So, if you can't beat them, you don't have to join them. At least outrun them.
I love it.
Outrun temptation.
Yuri, I want to say thanks for joining the show, brother. I really had a great time talking to you.
Same here, Trey. What a pleasure. Sincerely.
I want to say thank you to Yuri for joining the show, and I want to say thank you to you, the listener. Thank you for hanging out. Thank you for taking the time to download this episode and listen to what I have to say and just connect. Thank you so much for that. If you really liked what you heard today, please leave a rating and a review and share this episode. Also hit subscribe and check me out on yoursuperiorself.com. Follow my blog. Sign up for my email list. I have a ton of great projects coming up that I'm going to release on my email list, and they get a lot of news and notes about the show that's going on behind the scenes. So please sign up over there and become a member of Superior Nation. Thank you guys so much for joining. Please check me out on all the social media outlets. Facebook, Trey Downs, DOWNES, on Instagram at TDowns80, and Twitter at DownsTrey. Please share these episodes that you find very valuable and get it out to the masses. All right, guys, have a great week, and I will talk to you later.